All right, let me play what happened in the hearing, some sound from you and one from one of the Parkland parents, and then make your case to the people about why it was worth it. Here's the sound.
I hope we do not forget the pain and anguish and sense of loss felt by those all over the country who have been the victims of violence at the hands of illegal aliens. H.R. 8 would not have stopped many of the circumstances I raised, but a wall, a barrier on the southern border may have, and that's what we're fighting for. Mr. Chairman. Well, is there a process in the committee whereby if the very same people are repeatedly interrupting the time of the members, that those people will be asked to depart the committee?
He started saying that we should never forget those victims of gun violence that were attacked by illegal aliens, and how that is a big issue that we need to solve, and the solution is the wall. So that's when I was able to stand up and said, what about us? Don't forget about us and our kids. So I guess that the only option that you have as a father is make sure that the shooter of your son, it's an illegal alien, so they can mention him.
Matt, what's your response? What were you trying to achieve there, and what do you think of how it went down?
First, let me say how sorry I am to Mr. Oliver that he lost his son. These are senseless acts, and we are all on the same page to try to make them less likely. There are disagreements as to how to make gun violence less likely. Mr. Oliver brought his pain and his anguish to our committee, but he wasn't the only one. Savannah Lindquist is a 24-year-old rape survivor. She told the story of how she was violently raped in a gun-free zone because she could not carry her firearm with her. And Mr. Oliver was less than 10 feet behind this rape survivor, yelling and screaming repeatedly, Chris. And I looked at her and I could tell that she was scared. And so I know people react to trauma differently, but I was not trying to get Mr. Oliver thrown out or removed like your network has suggested. I simply was asking the committee chairman what you're supposed to do in a circumstance where one person who's like 2 or 3 times the size of this young lady seemed to be doing things that were, he didn't mean to intimidate her, but they were intimidating her. She actually complained to some of us on the right that that was an uncomfortable setting for her. And so, look, I want to commend the Democrat chairman, Jerry Nadler. I think he did a good job giving Mr. Oliver a final definite warning that you don't just get to show up in Washington and because a terrible thing has happened to you that you get to jump up and scream and yell.
I hear you about that, but it looked like you were taking on the victim's parents.
No, that's not true. It looks like that because
about
that's
something that had no bearing on the situation.
That's not
Nadler
true.
feels the same way, by the way.
Well, I'm sure he does feel the same way. He wanted to have a hearing about gun violence, and I wanted to highlight the fact that there are victims of gun violence who would be in a better position today if we did not have illegal immigrants using guns to kill people. Why is it that your network tries to creatively slice and dice that audio to make it look like I was trying to throw a guy out? I did not want to throw the guy out. I wanted him to just be calm.
I had you on to make your case, but I'm making a bigger point now. I am not here to accuse you of wanting to throw out the parents. I accept your answer about it. You take it up with the parents, see if they're okay with it. That's part of being a congressman. What I'm saying is a wall has got no business in the discussion at a hearing about what to do about these mass shootings and crimes that maybe can be prevented. It looked like grandstanding because it has nothing to do with the solution. The numbers don't match up, and the politics don't match up.
Do you realize that 1 out of every 5 people that the federal government charges with murder is an illegal alien? Do you know that
no,
illegal
I don't
aliens?
Know that.
Well, that comes from the Bureau of Crime Statistics. That illegal aliens are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than people who come here legally.
That's because they're incarcerated for coming in illegally.
No,
Matt,
not necessarily.
No, listen,
they
the data shows that citizens are more
crimes.
likely to be criminal than illegal entrants, unless you talk about the illegal entry. I mean, I got the bar graph right here.
I'm not making the argument that illegal aliens are uniquely, more inclined to commit gun violence. I'm saying that it's clearly a very preventable form of gun violence, because if you end illegal immigration...
But all of it is preventable. That's the point.
No. You made your point. I want to make mine.
Go ahead.
If you end illegal immigration, and if you had a wall, some of these people who are dead at the hands of illegal immigrants who shot them might not be.
And if you had universal background checks, if you had more intelligent ways of tracking it, but you only talked about the wall.
Let's go back to your question. No, Chris. I did not just talk about the wall. That's just how you you edit it. I specifically, in my time, talked about the fact that the state of Florida had red flag laws, that we'd converted our mental health system so people don't come out of jail and back to their arsenals. So just because that's what's in your clip, that's not all that I said.
But why
I
would
made
you bring it
broader
up at
points
all? It
about
seems
gun
like a
violence.
naked
No,
provocation.
the reason you bring up the wall is because if you have the wall, fewer violent illegal aliens will come into this country and more Americans will not be the victims of gun violence. That is a perfectly reasonable argument to make. And I'm not trying to shut down Democrats who want to make a robust background check argument. Let's have that discussion. In my state of Florida, we have background checks. And I believe that under the 10th Amendment, those are the types of things that we would leave to the states to be able to have those solutions. But the inference that somehow, if you're talking about guns and violence, you in no way can talk about illegal immigration, that you just have to have that as something that is off the table for discussion. That is ludicrous, and it's not the reality that our American families live who want safer streets.
But it is the reality. Because if you're going to talk about stopping the mass shootings, which seem to be the only kind of gun crime that anybody cares about in this country, then...
That is outrageous.
It is,
to say that the only gun crime people care about are mass shootings.
It is, because look, you guys never talk about it. It's only the mass shootings that get your attention.
Singh, who was just arresting someone at a traffic stop, got killed. A lot of people cared about him. And for you to suggest that all people care about are the mass shootings,
it's not about caring about the victims.
So irresponsible.
I'm talking about politicians and responsibility to do something about it. You guys have never done a damn thing until it became a tool of opportunity for you to talk about immigration. These mass shootings keep happening, and you do nothing except go on TV and say we're not a law away. And now you sit in front of a room of victims' parents and you talk about the wall. That's an issue.
I advocated for the red flag laws in Florida. I worked with Republicans and Democrats on the legislation that passed in my state. Because the wall will help have fewer violent illegal immigrants in this country killing people, Chris. That is obvious. And by the way,
so would access to mental health. So would universal background checks.
Oh, now
those are much more reasonable measures than a wall.
I'm not allowed to talk about illegal immigration at a gun hearing, but now all of a sudden, like universal access to health care is on the table.
You're attacking a little slice of the problem. Name me a mass shooting that was committed by someone who entered the country illegally.
It's not just about the mass shootings, Chris. No, it's your premise that only the mass shootings matter. I think
the only ones you guys will even discuss.
I discussed 3 other shootings that
were
mass
because
shootings,
now
and
they're
your
an
network
item,
spent
they're
all
an
day
article of
criticizing me about it.
convenience for you now, Matt.
You think it's convenient for us that people are dead at the hands of illegal aliens?
Absolutely.
You think that we are that craven that we would sit there and hope that people... That is so irresponsible. Look, I think
it's irresponsible of the people who are doing it because you've put a premium on certain lives and not others.
That's like saying Democrats want there to be more school shootings so they can have gun control. That would be
That's what you guys say all the time.
Absolutely not.
The right says that all the time. The Democrats must be so happy there was another mass shooting. I see it all the time.
I've never heard that. Will you put on your show any member of Congress saying that Democrats want there to be mass shootings? Because I've never heard a colleague say that.
I'm saying people on the right, not elected leaders. I've never had anybody come on this show and say anything favorable about mass shootings. I'm talking about the politics around it that give birth to the kind of cynicism that allows you to go into a hearing about guns and mention the wall.
I will do that every single time I get the chance because a wall will mean fewer people will die at the hands of guns and illegal aliens. And
where do you think a wall is on the list of reasonable moves to stop gun violence in this country?
It's below red flag laws. It's below mental health conversion. And by the way, I mentioned it after all of those things. I did mention those. And by the way, we did in the state of Florida. That's precisely what we did. We went after the root of the problem in mental health care in a broken system that just cycles people around like Nicholas Cruz was cycled around. And we're actually trying to fix the problem rather than demagogue it as a basis to go and deprive law-abiding citizens of their Second Amendment rights.
Listen. Second Amendment rights, you have them. They're secured in this country like nobody else in the world. The other problem is...
I intend to keep them that way.
You have more of this type of violence than anywhere in the world, even if you hold consistent for mental health. We don't have more mentally ill than other places in the world, not per capita, but we have more of these shootings, and yet... never any solutions that go to that until the wall.
We also have more video
and now
games.
we've got a great way to deal with it.
We also glorify violence in our music more. There are a lot of externalities in our society that lead to violence. And I am in total concert with you on attacking those things. But it is outrageous to suggest that you can't even talk about illegal immigration in the context of gun
violence. You talk about it in the right place. You talk about it in a hearing about illegal immigration. And by the way, when you do it, I'm not accusing you of this, but you defend the president, he has created a brown menace, a xenophobic principle of the people who come into this country exaggerating their criminality, the incidence of drugs and how they get into this country, and the incidence of terror and how it enters this country. and
Yeah, well-
overstays and how they get into this country.
There
He
are
has
more brown-
exaggerated all of it and given a solution that none of the people in private at the DHS or CBP would ever confirm as a top priority. That's exaggerating.
That's not
That's
true.
cynicism. That's bad governance.
Chris, more brown people are working and more prosperous under this president than at any time previously.
Including those who
So
aren't
he's-
here legally,
he's
and he
doing-
hires them too.
So
and then he
he's-
tries to say you should hate the same people that he hires.
No, he's not saying that you should hate anybody. He's saying that people should follow the law, which, by the
He
way,
calls them
that was a view
rapists
held by
and
Democrats.
killers and
Chris,
gangbangers, and
in
some, I
1992,
assume, are
the
good
Democratic Party had in their platform provisions that said that illegal aliens were coming in this country, committing felonies, sent back, and then they were right back across the border to do the same thing. So this new view of the left that we ought to be borderless with no
There's
ICE,
nobody saying that it doesn't happen, Matt. It's
so
about
wait a second. I have to
proportionality.
own every argument everybody makes on the right, but the people on the left who say we should abolish ICE, that borders
They have
and
to
walls
answer
are
for that.
immoral.
When they
Well,
come
and
on
they're
this show, they
wrong.
have
And
to
you know
answer
what?
for that.
And you know what? Those arguments are the ones that I have a right to challenge in
You
the
do.
Judiciary Committee.
100%.
And when we have a hearing on violence, I have an obligation to point out the extent to which some of that violence,
All right.
not all of it, maybe not even most of it, but some of that violence is preventable if we stopped illegal immigration.
All right.